Board of Trustees meeting to order. It is Tuesday, February the 7th, and let the record show that it's 5 minutes after 7. I would ask the clerk, Becky, will you please take the roll?
Sure. President Klein? Trustee O'Brien Berglund? Here. Ortner?
Here.
I'm sorry. Thomas?
Here.
Zappa?
Here.
Wecken is absent and Stanifer is absent.
Thank you, Becky. Item number 2 on the agenda is a review of the and approval of the minutes from our regular board meeting of January 3rd.
I'll move to approve the regular board meeting minutes of January 3rd, 2012.
Thank you, Jim.
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any discussions, suggestions for corrections, edits, etc.? Hearing none, all in favor of accepting the meeting minutes indicate by saying aye. We had a special board meeting on January the 5th, and those minutes are also in front of you.
George, I'll move to approve the special board meetings of January 5th, 2012.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Colleen. Any comments? All in favor of accepting these meeting minutes, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. It's at this time that we give residents an opportunity to make the board aware of topics, issues, and opportunities that are not on today's agenda. Don't see any. Item number 4, adoption of ordinance 3-2012, amending chapter 70, offenses and miscellaneous provisions, article 1. In general, section 70-6, loud and unnecessary noise prohibited. And I see the chief at the podium, and I will turn this topic over to him.
Well, I provided an issue statement on this matter. Really what we have at this current time is our municipal judge has found the current ordinance, or the ordinance that was previously on the books, to be unconstitutional. There was some wording that he felt did not meet requirements to make it constitutional. Really, the word reasonable, or some form of the word reasonable, to, I guess, give preferential decision-making to someone that fits into a category of persons. The word reasonable is used quite often in court rulings and other statutes to really show that it's not a person that's being unreasonable. I mean, it seems quite obvious, but we had a municipal court case where there was a subject who was cited for the noise ordinance, or violation of the noise ordinance. It was argued before the municipal court. There were a number of briefs, or I'm sorry, 2 briefs, one by the defendant and one by our village prosecutor, that were put toward to the judge. And his ruling came out, and if anybody's interested in reading it, his ruling came out that the ordinance on its face was not constitutional and unenforceable. So, for the last month and a half, we've been living in the village without a noise ordinance, and I'm glad that no one took advantage of that and used it against us. But we do have before you a motion that brings into being, basically rewording the entire portion of 70-6 parent A to now read as the City of Madison ordinance reads, which has been basically put through the ringer on the courts, or through the court system, and the Wisconsin Court of Appeals has found it to be constitutional and found that it was not too vague. So the Public Safety Committee reviewed it at the last meeting and found basically if the Wisconsin Court of Appeals finds it to be constitutional, we're hoping that the municipal judge will see that same language to be constitutional.
I'll move to amend section 70-6 of parentheses A of the Village of North Hudson Municipal Code to read, no person shall make or assist in making any noise tending to unnecessarily disturb the peace and quiet of persons in the vicinity thereof, unless the making and continuing of the same cannot be prevented and is necessary for the protection or preservation of property or the health, safety, life, or limb of some person.
Go ahead, Clint.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
Just one comment that I think Mark said unnecessary, where it reads unreasonably. Just for the recording, I think it's unreasonably, and that's what it is in the writing.
What'd I say?
I just meant,
Yes.
maybe I misheard, but
I said unnecessarily, it's unreasonably.
yeah.
Getting to, oh, I'm sorry.
No problem.
It's my teeth.
Okay. We wondered what it was. It's okay with them
Yes.
making a motion in a second to change it to unreasonably. I think we've emphasized the word unreasonably quite sufficiently.
That was
Mark.
ironic, yes.
Perhaps unnecessarily.
Yes, but that's
That was
reasonable
good.
too.
That was good, Terry. Any need for any further clarification? Now's a good time to ask. It'll be very interesting to see how this will be able to be enforced. I'm glad we were able to get this done before the summer.
Well,
All,
it doesn't. Yeah,
because this is an ordinance change, I'm gonna ask for a roll call vote. Dan, would you care to start?
Aye.
Colleen?
Yes.
aye.
Aye.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. All right, item number 5 is election inspector reappointment. I think you've had a chance to read over the background on this, and I'll just entertain a motion.
I'll move to remove Peggy Rogers as an election inspector for the Democratic Party and appoint her as an election inspector for the Republican Party for the January 1st, 2012 to December 31st, 2013 term.
Second,
Any questions or comments? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Item number 6 is, Mark, do you want to talk about that one? Is there any need for discussion on this, or?
it's a technicality from what I understand.
It's the way I understand it also. Would care to make a motion?
Yeah, glad to,
I'll move to
Thank you.
approve Scott Nelson as the registered agent for Zanner Inc., doing business as Cozy Corner, located at 708 6th Street North.
Very good.
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. Any discussion? I think you can read all about it in the background. You need to discuss anything? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. There's a biggie. We got the secondhand jewelry and secondhand article dealer license application. I hope you've had a chance to look this over.
I'll move to approve secondhand jewelry dealer and secondhand article dealer licenses for Lisa Conway of Midwest Gold Gal, effective until December 31st, 2012.
Thank you, Mark.
Second.
Thank you, Colleen. We're gonna have a little business. My only concern about this, and I'm glad Chief's still here, will these, it says home party business. So this would be like what we used to have, the Tupperware where she goes to somebody else's house and does this?
That is correct.
Okay,
So a home occupation permit isn't
And-
necessary because people aren't going to be coming to her home. She'll be going out to other people's homes.
just want to make sure, just wanted that clarification, so we didn't run into the parking issue that we'd run into with someone who's operating out of their home. Okay, very good. Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right, item 8 says here, new business from the board or staff, and that'd be me to start this off. And I do have a few things that I'd like to talk to you about. So item number 1, which is shown on here, is the upcoming centennial celebration. This is a, I think I'm correct in saying this could be a once-in-a-lifetime celebration. Because I don't think many of us are going to be around here for the 200th anniversary. 100 years. It's coming up on June 12th. And on Sunday, June the 10th, we would like to have some sort of a recognition for the 100 years that this village has been in existence. Mary Wecken has put together quite a cookbook and history tableau of the village, and you should be seeing them soon. I know that they're at the printer. I had a chance to see the rough copy before, or that went to the printer. But we need more than that. I'm going to share with you what my vision is, and then I'm going to ask for some volunteers. What we're looking at, some of us have been doing some talking about this, and what we'd like to see, first of all, I'd like to see some kind of a banner, whether it be draped over the village hall or whether it be draped across the street right in front of the village hall. Right now, that's something that a committee could make a decision on. I'd like to get that going as soon as possible. But as far as Sunday, June the 10th is concerned, what our vision is something simple and somewhat of a throwback to what it might have been many years ago. Maybe it's an ice cream social. Maybe we'll be serving 1919 root beer to go along with it. It's not too, that was only 7 years after the founding of the village, so maybe root beer and ice cream and maybe a pie contest, not a pie eating contest, so we could get some folks together like to make pies. Part of the vision might be getting together a brass band. I have a friend of mine who is a band director, and I'm going to see if I can sweet talk him. He doesn't know about this yet. Let's see if I could sweet talk him into getting some of the kids in the community together and maybe have a little brass band. I don't know. These are just some initial brainstorming. But what I want is that this be something that comes from the community. This is not something that comes from the Board of Trustees, although all of us, I would hope, would get involved somewhere along the line, volunteering our time and helping where we could. But I'd like this to be something that comes from the community. And so I'm going to ask if there, for all of those of you out there who think we ought to be doing something, give your name to Becky, our village clerk. She'll keep track of the names, and then we could get somebody who would be willing to chair a meeting and get the ball rolling. We have just barely 4 months before we have to pull this off. And I think my friend in the audience out here, Dan, who's affiliated, heck, you're the president of the Pepperfest, knows how long it takes to put one of these together. We were having a little chat earlier today. The Pepperfest folks, they have a lot of equipment that they, I hear from Dan, he'd already be willing to loan us some of the things. But this is not this is not a Pepperfest. This is very different. I can tell you right now, if anybody wants to know about beer or other alcoholic beverages, there will be none. Part of it has to do with a license. So whose license would we use? The village isn't going to get a beer license, and I wouldn't ask Pepperfest to give us theirs. It also creates a logistics nightmare that we're not ready for. We also want this to be definitely 100% a family thing. We want it to last only for a few hours, 2 to 3 hours. We want to keep it simple, but yet also acknowledge the 100 years that we've been in existence. So I throw it out to you folks. If you want to volunteer some time, get involved with it. Becky, you can put my name on there for whatever. I will help where I can. But I do not want to be the chairman of this committee. We need a volunteer from the community. We have already put aside $2,000. It's already in the budget. And Dan, did you want to speak to this at all? Pepperfest committee has also allocated, I guess you could almost call it a matching fund. But what they're interested in is have we done any fundraising? Have we contacted any businesses to see if they'd like to kick in a few bucks to help out? And Dan, was that pretty close?
That's pretty accurate. The question that arose is that we're willing to kick in funds for a celebration, but we're just wondering if the village solicited funds from anybody else.
Very good. Thank you. And so by this announcement and by this request, I can see that my friend Doug Stolberg over there is taking copious notes. And I'm quite confident that in the next edition, possible for the Hudson Star Observer, we'll be capturing some of my thoughts in that manner. Anybody have anything they'd like to comment on regarding that? Next item, just for the board members, I'd like to draw your attention to the EMS report, which is just behind the tab that says Other. I have asked, as a member of the EMS Commission, I have asked that after each meeting, or after each quarter, when these reports are presented, that they also be forwarded to Gloria, and I've requested from Gloria that they be made available to you as Board of Trustees members. And for the public, if you would like to read the EMS reports, I believe you can see them online at the EMS website. If you'd like a printed copy, come on in, and Gloria or Becky will be glad to make you a copy of the one that the trustees have gotten. There's a document in front of you, and at the top it says St. Croix Valley Foundation, and it's printed on both sides. On the other side is the Heritage Initiative, and I would encourage you to take a look at that. They are not looking for money. I get so many envelopes from agencies looking for money, but this one is not. And you'll notice down towards the bottom, there's a meeting on March 10th at 9 to noon in New Richmond, at the New Richmond WITC campus. And if you're interested in attending that after you read over this document, please follow through on the calling to make a reservation for yourself. The final thing, I've had a couple people ask me if I could mention this again, and I see this all the time. This is a plea to the folks out there. If you're going to be jogging, please, you may look really chic in your black outfit while you run down the street with your black lab, but we can't see you early in the morning, especially when headlights are shining in our faces as we're going down the roads. Please, again, I'm going to use the word conspicuity. Make yourself conspicuous. Also, have your children be conspicuous as they walk to the school or walk down the street to get to the bus stop. It's very difficult early in the morning while it's still dark or just as the sun is coming up. It's very difficult to see pedestrians. Sometimes the only thing I see is that little reflective dot on somebody's sneakers. I'd like to see a little bit more than that. And with that, I am finished for now, and we'll turn this over to the administrator. Oh no, Gloria's getting up. This is...
George, would you come join us, please? In recognition of your public service to the Village of North Hudson, the League of Wisconsin Municipalities, on both behalf on the Board of Directors and the entire League membership, would like to thank you for your public service. Dedicated local officials like you make our communities great places to live and work. In honor of 10 years of service, please accept this token of appreciation. Hope that you will wear this pin proudly. You've earned it. And this is from the Wisconsin League of Municipalities.
Thank you, Gloria. Oh, go ahead.
Can we suppose a little photo here?
Oh, sure.
So the Band-Aid ready?
What's that?
Band-Aid ready?
Gloria, maybe you want to get on the other side.
I could just hand it to you. if you
No.
prefer.
Right here in the
Okay.
pocket.
Well, after she gets on, we'll get the photo.
Aw.
Okay, everybody gets close together.
Close together, ladies. Come on, right here. Aw, just like a family photo.
We're gonna take one more, too.
Do you guys know about this?
Which guys?
I'd like to say my friends on the board. Thank you. Thank you. 10 years, huh?
I think there's a few others here that need to be recognized, and at some point we will get that done also.
I know that Mr. Zappa has served on this board on and off for many more years than have I. And this village owes him a lot of gratitude too. So thank you. It has been a pleasure. 10 years. The older you get, the faster time goes, doesn't it? Did you have anything else? Did you want to?
No.
No, you're done?
Yep.
Okay. Becky, as the clerk, do you have anything you'd like to share?
Just a reminder that we have a primary coming up on February 21st, and that is a school board primary election. The polls will be open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and this is the first election where the photo ID is a requirement, so I would remind everybody to bring their photo ID with them. We do have absentee ballots available now at the Village Hall here at the clerk's office, so if you need to vote by absentee, you can do so at this time. And you can vote by absentee up until the Friday before the election.
Thank you,
That's all I
Becky.
have.
Hmm?
You want the date? It is February. That would be February, no, the election is the 21st. That would be the 17th.
17th. And the election's at 21st.
Correct. Did you want to comment on the March, or the April meeting moved to March, just so that we make sure that they leave the.
Sure.
Would you be doing that?
Yep.
Thank you.
The spring election is April 3rd, which is the first Tuesday in April, and which conflicts with the regularly scheduled finance and board meetings. So we're proposing to move the April 3rd board meeting to Tuesday, that would be March 27th, at the regular 6 p.m. finance and 7 p.m. village board timing.
Do we need a motion on that, as we have every year in the
Well,
past? I think.
I thought we would probably do that at the first
Okay.
March board meeting, but just to let everybody know to kind of plan for that date at this point, and if
Yeah,
there's a
let's make,
conflict.
let's make sure that that's on the agenda
Yep.
for next, for the March 6th meeting.
Correct.
This is an annual occurrence,
Yes, it is.
and we do have an April meeting, but it is a reorganizational meeting, and it'll come later in the month. All right. Anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. I see it, I'm guessing that the Plan Commission did not meet. And so we don't have any, do we have anything? Anybody want to report on that? Okay. Item number 10, Personnel and Finance Committee. You notice that there are a couple items on here. One is the claims, and the Finance Committee did make a recommendation to you, so would a member of the Finance Committee like
I
to make
would
that motion?
move to approve the 2012 non-recurring claims received in January of 2012. It's
Oh.
actually changed to 12,
That was a
totaling
mistake.
$56,526.85.
Second.
Thank you. Yeah, that was just a minor typo. Okay. And there will be another motion in just a minute. Any questions or comments on the bills? If not, we'll take a roll call vote. Start with you this time, Jim.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
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 Thank you. And the second is a packet of bills that are carryover from 2011.
I would move to approve the December 2011 non-recurring claims totaling $16,029.76 received in January of 2012.
December, wasn't it? Second.
Thank you, Mark. Any question regarding this item? Spending roll call this time. Dan, you get to start us off.
Yes.
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 Thank you. Personnel Finance Committee also addressed the Police Department memorandum of understanding letter requiring retirement contributions. And although this did not have to come before the board, I wanted it to come before the board so that the board was aware of what we would like to do with this. If you take a look in your book, you'll notice that this comes in a Wisconsin Legislative Council Act memo. And I'm going to turn this over to Gloria to just give us a little brief overview of this.
Well, Carrie, do you want to take it, or do you want me to?
I can give you a brief overview, sure.
Thank you, Tony.
What it is that the Act 10 and the Act 32, as many people will remember from last year, changed a great deal of things about collective bargaining for public employees in Wisconsin. And if there's a union contract that's already in place, a lot of those provisions would not come into effect until that contract either expires or was opened by both parties for renegotiation. And what the Act 65 did was to put a slight exception in there, which would allow a village to negotiate certain aspects of the benefits package with the union without triggering the bad effects on the unions, from the union's perspective, of opening up the contract so that everything's negotiable again. So I think what we'd like to see here, what would probably be best, is if the board would just give George the authority to do this and just approach the union and just see how it goes.
The question of how much of a savings and how much of a cost savings for the board and cost to the employees is on the back of that document. And Gloria, you want to address that piece of it?
Well, basically, that information relates to, is based on wages from the past year, without knowing what this year's wages would be exactly. So it is an estimate, but basically, if
Aren't we getting a little ahead of ourselves with that? I mean, the information is there.
yeah.
I don't think discussing it any further is really appropriate. I mean, we're gonna, I'd like to move to approve the village to enter into one memorandum of understanding, or however you want to phrase that. With the,
To give George the authority. to
give
approach
George the
union.
authority to, whatever, Gloria made some reference to the fact that we have to word this somewhat correctly, so in the absence of having that wording,
I think your motion would be, though, just to
Yes.
give George the authority to move forward on this. I think that'd be
that
satisfactory.
suffices for me.
Works for me.
I think, Colleen, did you second
No,
that?
Dan did. Okay. Any further discussion?
When is the contract up?
This contract is up in end of this year. Okay. Any other questions? Okay. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Thank you.
Public Works, George?
Public Works.
We discussed several items. The only item of action was regarding the energy audit for the village hall and the village shop. Public Works authorized our supervisor to follow up on the energy audit recommendations, and we do have one recommendation approved at finance, and that is to accept the bid to get some, to have Scott Freer Electrical install 6 occupancy sensors in the village hall at a cost not to exceed, what did we say at the meeting, $900? $900. If we don't have to vote on it, well, if we get a second on it, we can have Mark fill you in on for any of the other details, what was done.
Second.
Okay. Now we can talk about it. Do you want to just give an overview for the,
Again,
finance was practice, you know.
Basically, the village had energy audit done September last year. We went over the recommendations of that energy audit, and basically, I made some recommendations in a memo. Basically, they recommended de-lamping or relamping the village hall light fixtures. While we discussed that, the finance committee was to, at this time, just to de-lamp all village hall light fixtures down to one, or down to, removing one lamp from each fixture. And then basically, as those lamps are getting old and need to be replaced, is to actually go from the 32 to the 28, so slowly we'll switch out to 28-watt lamps throughout the building. The other thing we discussed was of course the having the occupancy sensors stuck in the 3 restrooms, basement hallway, and the break room at a cost not to exceed the $900. We also discussed we reduced taking the recommendations as far as the use of natural gas. Basically, one thing they recommend is reduce the cubic feet per meter of outside air from 900 down to 450, which has been done. Then it was also found when we were having some work done on the furnaces that we were actually the gas pressure to the building initially was set up for a low pressure system. It was somehow changed at the meter to a 2 PS system, which required us to put down step down regulators on all 3 of the furnaces. So that has been done. They also mentioned in the report this check to see if they insulate the hot water pipes, which they are insulated, and also they questioned the ductwork. And from what going over with the HVAC personnel and everything else that were here, they said that it appears everything that's underneath the floating slab in the police department, general government area else is insulated. Everything that's in the mechanical room itself is not insulated. So basically all I have for the village garage, or for the village hall. The village garage finance committee requested that basically it was tabled until we go back to public works to see if we can make a few changes. Bring it back to you next month.
Very good. All right. Gloria, do you want to say at this meeting what you said at the finance meeting?
When you did the energy audit,
You were
I
complimentary.
did this at the city garage, and Paragon, they're off of exit 4, they came in for nothing and gave us what they could do with our fixtures, and they retrofitted about 95% of our fixtures. They take the ballast out and they put a reflector in, and then they put one bulb in.
Well, your all's currently fluorescents up there?
Yeah.
Okay, ours are the cam
Sodium.
rated. They have on cam rated.
Uh,
400 watts. So basically, with our fixtures, they're recommending replace those 400 watt fixtures with fluorescents. Right now, they're recommending the T8s, but they're talking with Dan. He said he has some T5s stuck down at his warehouse, and actually, we're gonna take a look at that, see if we can actually get a
But
better
like the
price.
village hall, they could actually retrofit the light fixtures that are here. It's an option. They did it for us for free.
Okay, why don't you give that information to me tomorrow or something? I'll give him a call.
I'll email it to you.
Very good. We have a motion on the table, and just because we have, assuming that the motion passes, that is not a requirement to spend that. So, this would simply authorize you to get the work done, and if you can get it done for free and save the village $900, I think that would be admirable, so.
They did the engineering part.
Oh, the engineering part.
You had to
Oh.
purchase.
You gotta buy
See,
stuff
I was
from
under
them.
the impression you said they did it for free. Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments? All right. This is a spending item, so Dan, you want to start us off?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
And Mark, do you have anything else for Public Works?
Oh, that was the only thing of significance.
Ah. Anything of insignificance you want
Well, there were, no, I shouldn't say, that's the wrong words. The only action item we had to bring
Oh,
to board,
okay.
there was the shop yards is not an insignificant thing, but that's yet to be determined.
to? That is correct. All right. Public Safety, turn this over to you, Mr. Thomas.
Thank you very much, George. Public safety did meet. We had a good meeting. First thing on our agenda is item B, the police department minimum daily staffing hours approval requested. Would you like me to start this out with a motion, or let Mark give you an overview?
Yeah, go ahead,
first?
start with a motion.
I'll
in
move
this
to
case.
set the North Hudson Police Department minimum daily staffing level at 8.5 hours per day.
Second.
Thank you. All yours, chief.
Oh, all right. Basically, there's quite a bit of information in front of you, and I want to make sure that we're not hearing the wording incorrectly. It's minimum daily staffing levels. That doesn't mean that that's where my scheduling is going to be. It's in the event that there are vacation requests, there are officers that call in sick. I provided you with a I guess a tentative schedule or an example schedule, just to show you those areas where sometimes there are gaps. I won't discuss, I guess, for public safety reasons where the gaps are, but there are sometimes gaps where there is not a North Hudson officer that's on duty because the current staffing levels does not allow for 24-hour coverage in the village. But we do have primarily 24-hour coverage. There's only a few areas that we fall short. And because of our scheduling, there are times when there are 2 officers scheduled, and if one of them wants a vacation day and there is no overtime that's taken by the other officers that are available on their days off, currently we have a 12-hour minimum, which would mean that one officer that's left on the schedule on an 8.5-hour shift, which is a typical shift for an officer, would then get bumped for 3.5 hours of overtime to a 12-hour shift and cover those busy times that we would need to make sure that we have coverage. During the budget discussions last year for the 2012 budget, there was a lot of discussion about overtime costs and expenses. And as you can see in the issue statement, using our most junior officer, not the most senior officer, but really looking at, okay, what is the least amount that we're going to save in this type of move. We're looking at a potential of, on average, for what we've expended in the past several years, past 4 years, past 5 years, we're averaging about 147 hours of overtime to cover those minimum staffing hours. So if we were to remove those 147 hours by going to 8.5-hour daily minimum staffing level, then we're at worst case scenario saving $5,400 if we continue with that current average. So I see some cost savings there for the police department aspect of it. I don't think that 147 hours really is fairly minimal as far as the coverage for the village. And it's not that there's no law enforcement coverage at that point. It just means that the sheriff's department, should a call for service come in, the sheriff's department would respond if it were a minor incident. If there were something major, then a supervisor for the police department would get called out anyway. And all of the follow-up from that initial call by the sheriff's department would be turned back over to the North Hudson PD to follow up on at a later date. So it is not that we're not stripping them of law enforcement coverage. It just means that the minimum would be the 8.5 hours for that particular day, and then we would adjust the schedule based on high volume call times. There would not be, the sheriff's department would then not put someone on patrol, especially to North Hudson. So I don't want people to get the wrong idea. They would cover a call if a call came in. If no calls came in, a sheriff's office or a deputy may not even drive through the village, depending on their call volume on that particular day. The Public Safety Committee reviewed it at their January meeting, and they have recommended it. In the past, the Public Safety Committee has really made the determinations on this, but due to some of the fiscal parts to this and really some of the impact with the current climate with the police department, we decided that the board should take a look at this because we're really getting down to about as low as we really want to go on minimum daily staffing. 12 hours, there was some flux where 8.5 hours is really where I see the village residents would probably not want to go lower than that. Questions?
Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. I think
I think we do want to also just touch on the fact that with the detail of how this was presented, it was accepted well by the entire police staff.
I'm sorry, yeah, the officers at a staff meeting that we had are in favor of this. They obviously are looking at the availability of their vacation times. They understand that there's going to be a reduction in the opportunities for overtime, but it's something that they're willing to give up because obviously it does impact them having to work longer shifts and those types of things. So there's no opposition from the union officers at this point.
Mark, in the case of an emergency, could we call an officer in even though he's not scheduled to be on?
Absolutely.
Does that happen?
Yes.
Occasionally?
Yes.
Thank you. I knew that was the case, but I wanted to hear you say it.
Sure.
Okay. All
I'm
right.
available also, George.
You are too? Okay, good. I'll keep that in
I'm
mind.
not very well trained, but nonetheless.
Well, take what we can get. Anybody else have any questions or? Okay. I don't think this requires a roll call vote, do you?
Nope.
Okay. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The next item on here, while you're up there, Chief, you may want to stay there. I think maybe
Sure.
you might call on them to
Absolutely.
talk about the new stops.
The next one is, basically, we're trying to address the issues that we've had of trailer parking down at Ferry Landing. And again, we've been running into some issues where our current signs are not valid enough to hold up in a court of law. But there is an issue that we need to address because when trailers do get parked on both sides of the street, it restricts the ability for a safety vehicle or a fire truck to get through. So I will again make a motion, and if you don't mind, then Mark talking about, but I would move to install no trailer, quote, no trailer parking this block, end of quote, signs in the 600 and 700 blocks of Galahad Road North, 200 block Summer Street North, and the cul-de-sac of Galahad Place North.
Second.
Then you'll see in your board packet the maps of where these signs will be, and Mark can probably better explain what we've been running into with enforcing these.
Yeah, as you can see in the issue statement, again, we had some enforcement action that was taken on parking in the area of Galahad Road because of the flooding this year. The ferry landing park, and we can't really call it a boat launch, but because it's used as such, that's really what it is, a road to the river. I like that terminology better. Was used probably the most that it's been in the 11 years that I've been here, because really we're the only one that was open for access. And so we had a lot of issues with the fact that back in 2009, the Public Safety Committee had signed that area trying to prohibit parking of trailers on the roadway and to get people into the probably 8 slots, even though they're not lined, but about 8 cars or cars with trailers can fit in that area, trying to really encourage people to utilize that area. And then once it's full, really to try to find somewhere else. We didn't have that luxury this year. There were a number of citations that were issued for parking in violation of the ordinance, but more properly in violation of the signs that were posted. There was a defendant that did fight or came to court and fought the citation, and the judge basically found him not guilty based on the signage. And so, again, we have an unenforceable ordinance/sign, and so went looking to try to find some resolution to that. The city of Hudson has these no parking or no trailer parking this block, basically along First Street, along Cooley Road. The area is close to their boat landing. Doesn't seem to be any issues with the understanding of people that are parking in that area to be able to realize it's a fairly simple sign. The other sign, comments were made that it was somewhat confusing because of the cant of the sign, how it was canted, and whether or not where those arrows were pointing. And the sign I'm talking about is in your packets, the no parking. And then basically it references the village ordinance 90-9, parent C, which the Public Safety Committee is also reviewing. But currently, in trying to make some changes to that area, the Public Safety Committee said, let's go away from the ordinance itself, and we'll enforce the signage that will be put up there. And basically, the signs will be in the same location that the current signs are on the same post. Those will be removed. The new signs would be put up in their place to say no trailer parking this block, which to me seems very obvious what the enforcement or what the purpose of those signs would be.
Very good.
I have one question or comment, Mark. I agree that the ordinance doesn't need to be on the sign, certainly, but just with the language there, you do enforce ordinances, you don't enforce signs. So there has to be some ordinance behind that, a sign to give authority to write a citation.
Right, and currently we do have parking ordinances that discuss the fact that we can enforce the signs for,
You can't just put up a sign somewhere and all of a sudden start enforcing it without having some backing for that.
yeah, thanks for the clarification. That's exactly right, and we do have the parking sign ordinance that basically says you must obey signs within the village.
Do we have to have that posted on the sign? No, we don't. Good, that's what, thanks.
You got anything else
Speed
you wanna
limit
say?
sign doesn't have
I think that pretty much covers it.
Not quite.
Quite.
Mark?
an ordinance.
And
reference.
looking over the chief's report from the January 19th meeting, I read the last bullet on there, and I'd like you to talk about that. All too often, the only time people see officers is when they're speeding through town or running a red light or a stop sign. And I want you to talk about this, because I think it's a wonderful program that you initiated that, didn't you?
George, do we want to vote on this first, though? and
I didn't know,
move
oh,
on?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
That's right, you did make, you know what, I flipped the page
Aye.
thinking we were done. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, now you can talk about counteract.
In the chief's report, I just discussed that in January, I worked with the fifth graders on a program called Counteract, which was actually started by the Hudson School District, not by me, but they, because of their staffing levels, the Hudson Police Department was teaching all of the schools. And at the time, the school liaison officer was running rampant from school to school, and that's really all he was doing. And so 5 years ago, or 6 years ago, I sat in through the program with him, learned how to teach it, and basically said, would you like me to take that off your hands? And they were more than happy. As a matter of fact, they gave the sheriff's department Holton Elementary because that was in their jurisdiction, and so they've kind of gotten rid of those outlier schools that aren't within the city proper. And so the first several years that the city had a grant to be able to provide the materials for that Counteract program, and for all the Counteract students that are probably watching tonight, the program is to learn how to resist or oppose alcohol, chemicals, and trouble. So we discuss a lot of information about those topic areas. We talk a lot about consequences and different ways that they can make positive alternatives that are legal, safe, and fun. And so a couple of years ago, the funding ran out on the grant that they had, and so we have recently been applying for grants through the Pepperfest. It's ironic that Dan is here tonight, and have been the funding for all of the supplies has come from the Pepperfest grant, which is to the tune of about $500 every year for the materials for that for 3 classes. Next year there'll be 2 classes. But it's probably, they always ask me when I go in and talk about what do police officers do, they always say, what's your favorite part of the job? And I honestly tell them this, when I'm up here talking to students, because that is the most fun, I learn more from them every year than they learn from me. And it's really a great, it's 6 class periods, a half hour a period with each of the classes. And I think it's a good opportunity for them to get to know a police officer in a different setting, like George mentioned, than some of the, I guess, conversations they may hear about police officers or the actions of those officers. So, and it's always, it never fails. I'll be at the Y, and one of the kids that I had 3 years ago will whisper, "That's Chief Richard." And so, they know who we are just by our face and interactions, and I've had a lot of good feedback, and I can tell you that there's no statistic out there, but in the last 5 years since we've been teaching this course, it seems like our juvenile stuff has kind of gone away, that they either trust us or they know that we're out there or something. But again, not statistical, but it's just one of those feelings that you get as you go through, or there may be more respect for what we do. I'm not sure what the reasoning is, but it's been a great program, and we are going to be continuing it. Gloria and I have been working on, there's a fund, there was a grant that was obtained by Chief Eichel 6 or 7 years ago that really had never been exhausted, and so we will be turning to that fund to continue to purchase supplies for the Counteract program. And we thank Pepperfest, but we think we have our own supply source for a little while at least, until that gets expended. So I appreciate the opportunity to talk about that.
Good. Thank you, Mark. All right. Do you have anything else, Jim?
No, other than I'm just really impressed. It's a pleasure to work chair of the public safety with Mark. He's just on top of things. It's really great.
Very good. Thank you, Mark. Well, next up here is public welfare, and,
Nothing to report, George.
nothing, oh, well, that's good. And then we have the park board, and Colleen, I'll bet you've got something, because I see it in writing here.
Not much, really. We're just working on the possibility of a horseshoe pit or bocce ball or beanbag boxes in one of the parks. You have something for adults or older kids to use, and just something to add a little variety to the activities we can do in the parks. And that's really about it.
That's it? All right. Anybody else have anything that they would like to share, or any concerns, comments, or whatever? All right. Mr. Zapp, is there any final words you'd like to say?
Move to adjourn, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let the record show that Mr. Zapp adjourned the meeting at 5 minutes before 8.
Or was supposed to.